There's news in the NFL today, and it's time to break it down in the only way we know how. Hot Route style.
Earl! Johnny!
With our spin on football headlines with a mix of frozen tundras.
Let's be a cold weather team.
Neck rolls.
Boom!
And grass-stained jerseys.
The good old-fashioned guts was probably the biggest difference in the game.
Welcome in, everybody, to Hot Routes, where we tackle 5 heavy-hitting NFL topics every Tuesday here on YouTube at 6 p.m. Eastern. Joined, as always, by Matthew Coller of the Purple Insider podcast. Matthew also just wrote a little article about should the Vikings care about beating the 49ers. And, I haven't read the article, Matthew. I hope everybody goes to check it out. But I'm curious, should the Vikings care about beating the 49ers?
I haven't published it yet, which is why you haven't read it yet. But
okay.
I'm still masterfully crafting it. I want this to be right. So the headline I'm working with right now is, does the Vikings win over the 49ers change their outlook for the future, meaning the short and the long-term future? And of course, that begins with the trade deadline. Does this mean that they should buy at the trade deadline because suddenly they could beat one of the NFC's best teams? Does it mean they should do nothing and just let it play out? Does it mean that they should kind of ignore this trade or this at the trade deadline and trade away Danielle Hunter anyway? I think that what it means is that any team can beat any team in the NFL, and that their capability has always been extremely high. On the offensive side, they should be impressed with the defensive side. Also, Brock Purdy threw them the ball twice, like right to them. And that helped a lot since they were averaging 9 yards per pass attempt allowed throughout the game, having a fumble in the red zone, a missed field goal, 2 interceptions. Is that stuff going to happen every week in their favor? Probably not. I think what we're looking at with the Vikings is an average team, and this is what average teams do. When we say average, we immediately think like, oh, it's bad, right? Average is bad. You want to be good. But average is you could probably beat a good team when things go your way. And that's exactly what they did. But then there's this other part that I think exists in the mind of Kevin O'Connell. He's like, did you see Christian Darrisaw out there? Oh, buddy. Did you see Jordan Addison out there? Whoa. This team could win a lot of football games. And have you seen their upcoming schedule? There's just no way they're not winning a bunch of these games. They've got Green Bay, which sorry about all that. And then, after that, it's Atlanta, it's New Orleans, it's Denver, it's Vegas, it's Chicago. That is not an impressive group. Kirk Vember is coming for everyone. And I think they really only have one difficult choice, which is whether to trade Hunter. But if they beat the Packers, it should be an easy choice. And it shouldn't, it should affect their future. Getting an upset win and then beating the Packers and being 500, not a time to sell. Should it affect the long term? I also probably not. I don't think so. Where they stand with Kirk Cousins probably shouldn't be any different, despite how exciting it was to see him play the way he did last night.
I know it's easy to get sucked into a big performance like that, but he was awesome. Like, honestly, he was like big time, like managing the rush, making big throws, just in complete control, like kind of doing like his Tom Brady impression in a lot of ways. And it's just one game, but and I know he's kind of played at that level in the past and gone back to, old Kirk or whatever, but it does feel like at his age, he's just so comfortable within that offense. And I do wonder if he goes on this stretch and he goes undefeated in his 4 games without Justin Jefferson, it's like, are we really looking at Kirk coming back again next year? And is that big of a problem if he's going to actually play at that level? And you have a defense with Brian Flores that is basically everything has been as good as you could have imagined in terms of just taking a garbage roster and making it an average defense. What happens if you plug in a couple more pieces with a good draft and a good offseason? I think it does change a lot for the Vikings, because like you said, they probably are going to go on a run and put themselves in a position to maybe make the playoffs. So definitely excited to check out your full thoughts in the article. Where can we find that, by the way? Where can we find the article?
Well, everything I do is housed over at purpleinsider.com. So people can go there, join the newsletter, or, of course, listen to the daily podcast. And the reaction from the press box last night, which was like a little bit head swimming. Like, what did we just watch? Just real quick, a real quick little history, though, on the Kirk Cousins. Once you think that he's turned a corner or he's a different player, it always swings back the other way, or at least their performances do. 2019, he had a stretch where he won 6 of 7 games, 18 touchdowns, 1 pick, 125.6 quarterback rating. They finished 10-6, lost in the second round of the playoffs. It's the best he's ever been. And I don't think he's getting better. There's some decision making that I think is good, but that was actually without Adam Thielen, a lot of that. Just Stephon Diggs, and we talked pretty much the same way. And he got himself a contract extension after that. And there's a reason this man is in the Business Hall of Fame, because he always gets to a point where you're like, hey, what if we just got a nose tackle? Then, maybe we could get over the hump. And then you start the next season 1-3, and you go, oh, wait, maybe not, though. They're still 3-4 football team. That's not good enough, even after one win where he was really good. They were 2 for 13 on third down last week against the Chicago Bears. Last week. They almost lost Tyson Bagent last week. So it's the Kirk coaster is a very, very real thing. And you can bet that it's about to go up next month. And there will be a lot of discussion about Cousins coming back on an extension.
All right. Love it. So our first big topic for today's show is surrounding the upcoming trade deadline, October 31st. It's our last chance to kind of do some trade speculation, because when we go live next Tuesday, I believe the trade deadline will have just passed. So I thought it'd be fun to kind of entertain some potentially realistic, or if you don't want realistic and you just want fun trades that we might or might not see in the next week. I thought 3 each would be a good number here. What was your first theoretical trade here?
I went very chalk, and I did not get creative at all with my first trade. And that is DeAndre Hopkins to the Buffalo Bills. The Tennessee Titans are selling. Good for them. They should. That's exactly what they should do. They're going to play 2 quarterbacks this week. Nothing says we're tanking like playing both Will Levis and Malik Willis. But DeAndre Hopkins' talents are wasted there. I saw him in training camp a little bit. He didn't really fully participate when they came to practice against the Vikings, and I wasn't exactly blown away by what's left of his speed. If you put him next to Stephon Diggs, though, run him out of the slot a bunch, give him that Emmanuel Sanders role that they had a couple years ago, and that offense is really struggling to find a second dude. They were thrown to a guy who I was like, not sure I've heard of him before, against New England. Some little quick guy. I was like, oh, look, that guy's kind of fast.
Deontay Hardy?
It was. Yes, it was Hardy.
Well, he changed his name, to be fair.
He used to be
he used to be I'll look it up.
You can do that. You could just be like, oh, I mean, I guess the guy He Hate Me did that in the XFL back in the day, but I didn't know you could
more name changes these days. We really are.
That's not my name
Leonard.
That's
Juju
true.
Brents instead of Julius
Adafe Owe changed it. He was Jason in college, and then so interesting.
So he used to be Deontay Harris for the.
Okay. I've heard of Deontay Harris. I've never heard of this guy, but same person. Either way, if that's number 2 on your team, that's not going to do it. And they could try bringing Cole Beasley back for like the 4th time. There's nothing left there either. It's time for them to act like a real contender, grow up a little, and get another wide receiver, because the guys that they've drafted have not worked out. And when they were at their best, Josh Allen had lots of options, and I believe their tight end is also hurt as well. I mean, they're in a little bit rough here, and they need something to get them a spark. I think DeAndre Hopkins would do that. The most basic, put me on first take in the morning, and I will yell about that trade. But I think after watching them on Sunday, they need a boost right now.
Yeah, I could see it. I mean, Gabe Davis has in a contract year, and he's been, he's had some good games, but he does seem to kind of disappear from a reliability standpoint. So just to have another guy that Allen trusts, I think would be good. I will just randomly shout out. I saw a breakdown on Twitter from Dan Orlovsky, and he was pointing out how Josh Allen has like this hole in his game right now where the Patriots were just blitzing the middle linebacker like time and time again. and they didn't have any like hot adjustments, and Allen would just not look into the face of the blitz. So I do think there's a little bit more of a Josh Allen issue there potentially than just like Hardy's not working or Knox isn't working or Kincaid's not working. But as we've seen, having a guy like Hopkins you can trust can do a lot for a quarterback. So I could see it. I mean, everyone's kind of for sale in Tennessee right now, it seems. I did have another Titan on my list, and I'm going to go with a bit of a homer pick here. How about reuniting Derrick Henry with Matt LaFleur in Green Bay? Now, I know people were like, Derrick Henry wants to play for a contender, and I understand that. But if you get traded, you don't necessarily control that. And as far as I know, Derrick Henry doesn't have a no trade clause. Green Bay running back is a sneaky, huge need in Green Bay. They have right now a quarterback that I think clearly needs a run game to help the offense function. You have an offense itself being the Matt LaFleur kind of Shanahan style offense that, similar to like the Falcons with Bijan or the Niners with Christian McCaffrey. There are certain offenses that I think having a superstar running back, or Tennessee, where Derrick Henry's been for all this time, having an actual elite superstar running back can actually hold pretty good value for you if you really want to lean into the run game. And Green Bay has shown since Matt LaFleur got there, they want to lean into the run game. They thought they had this great duo coming into the year with Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon. A.J. Dillon turned into a pumpkin. He has one run a game that makes you say, hey, he remembered he's 250 pounds. And then the rest of them, he's tripping over himself. He didn't even have a run last week against Denver that was impressive. He had one wide open lane. He gets into the second level and just there's no creativity there at all. He just goes down on first contact. So he's been truly one of the worst, feature backs in the NFL, getting a significant workload right now. And Aaron Jones is 30 years old, coming up on a contract, and can't seem to get this hamstring healthy. So it's not just about trying to get Derrick Henry for this year for Green Bay, but I think when they're desperately trying to make Jordan Love not look like a bust, you're putting Derrick Henry back with Matt LaFleur in an offense that he's very familiar with to be plug and play. But also it's a move for next year too, where I think this team will probably need to spend high draft capital on a running back anyway. They're not afraid to pay a running back. I think it's just a spot where Henry could have a lot of success. And I can picture him in a Packers jersey. I don't know about you.
Well, I do think that my nightly jogs are about as fast as A.J. Dillon at this point. So it is rough to watch. It's like this is no Dorsey Levens, man. I mean, he's just not, there's no burst there. Here's what I think. I think it's been a little bit entertaining, and I have no bias here as a Vikings reporter. So, but I can laugh at Packers fans dealing with the fact the team is bad and watching Jordan Love struggle. And you're like, what do they do with their hands? What do they do with their tweets when Aaron Rodgers is not here to put on the Superman cape and make Matt LaFleur look like a genius? Weird how once again happened to Bill Belichick. Hey, how smart is Bruce Arians? I think I'm going to step away from the game as soon as Tom Brady isn't my quarterback anymore. Brilliant, right? Or as if Brady is, over the hill, I'm going to just step away from that situation. And here's Matt LaFleur. I loved those stats when I would see Matt LaFleur has the greatest win percentage in history. He makes Bill Walsh look like a moron. And you're like, no, I don't think so. I think that would be Aaron Rodgers. And when it comes to your trade, I think the Packers need to just live in reality, man. They are a very young football team that needs to grind out this miserable season and then figure out who they are. What are they doing at quarterback? Are they giving Jordan Love another year? Because half the stuff Jordan Love does, I'm like, oh, nice. And then half the stuff I'm like, Jameis. I see Jameis. And that's not what you want. You can't cross the Jameis line. But I have trouble with your Derrick Henry idea because I don't think they're contenders at all. And I think that the teams that are looking to really contend need to bring in Derrick Henry, and they need to get younger. They need to move on from Aaron Jones. They need to move on from A.J. Dillon and load up the roster with young players. Like you said, draft a running back in the middle rounds, not like a Bijan Robinson doesn't play, Jahmyr Gibbs isn't any good type of first round pick. Maybe aim for the second or third round. But I just can't see it. I think if you're a team like the Browns, maybe you do that because you're like really trying to win.
I like the Browns too. That'd be a good fit. Yeah, I don't think the team needs to get any younger though, because they're already the youngest team in the league. I just think I don't think it's like a franchise crippling move to send a 4th round pick for Derrick Henry for a running back contract that's not that bad. I think after the trade, you're probably paying him like $8 million on the cap. I don't think it's like gonna set you back. I think it just gives you a nice baseline for people to kind of develop around it. Just to kind of raise the floor so that all the young guys you have invested in can grow. So that's kind of was my vision for it. What else? What other trades you got?
Yeah, younger at the position I meant. Just that running back.
Yeah.
Because I don't know how much. I mean, Henry's still got some juice. He's still a big man. So the first one I went chalk, and the second one I went deep into the bag. All right, so this is going back to Vikings roots here. In 2017, I watched Case Keenum come off a bench and lead a team to the NFC Championship. Deshaun Watson is broke, and PJ Walker, God love him. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful story. And if they commit pass interference every single time on his game-winning drives, great. He's going to win a lot of football games. I don't know if Deshaun Watson's going to be healthy all season. I think the Cleveland Browns should trade for Case Keenum, who is the backup quarterback of the Houston Texans. If I'm not mistaken, he's the 3rd string quarterback behind Davis Mills. And of course, CJ Stroud is going absolutely nowhere. So Case Keenum's just vibing in Houston. He's done it with Kevin Stefanski before. He knows the offense, or at least the general Kubiak-inspired, Shanahan-inspired type of offense. He can deliver the ball to his playmakers. I've seen him do it before when he's got a running game, an offensive line, all those things, and a couple of guys to get the ball to. I think Cleveland should acquire Case Keenum, get him ready in a couple weeks, and be prepared for the inevitable Deshaun Watson's probably not playing because he's hurt to step in and not PJ Walker.
I like it. Yeah, I like the Case Keenum thought, or bring Jacoby Brissett back too could be an option. Either one, like absolutely, man. It's just getting weirder and weirder with the Deshaun Watson situation. And yeah, someone that knows the system that isn't just PJ Walker off the street would be a much better option. All right, I'm going to go another situation, trading to a bad team. You seem to be putting all the good players on the contenders. I'm putting all the good players on the teams trying to get better, which is a nice contrast. But I'm going to send Jerry Jeudy, who had a nice game against Green Bay last week, running some nice routes, getting open, to the Carolina Panthers. They need anybody that can separate. They've got, Thielen and Mingo and all these guys. Bryce Young is out there struggling, going through it. And Bryce has actually played better the last couple of weeks. He's developed something with Adam Thielen, but this is a team that doesn't have a 1st round pick. I think they've shown that they're unlikely to draft a better receiver for them in this upcoming draft, where they're going to have to draft someone, right? Like whatever, if they send a 2nd round pick or 3rd round pick for Jerry Jeudy, whichever it would be, they're probably going to be spending that pick on a wide receiver anyway. That's probably not going to be as good as Jerry Jeudy, and you can get Jerry Jeudy now to help them now. You got the Alabama connection. I think this is the move that Carolina needs to make.
So I'm not making this comparison as in the quality of players, so bear with me. But what we've seen from teams when they tank and draft quarterbacks is they often trade for a wide receiver. So Philadelphia goes, 4 wins or something in 2020. I know you don't call that like a full tank, but they kind of tanked that year. Then they give Jalen Hurts his wide receiver by trading for A.J. Brown. Tua in Miami, they get him his wide receiver by trading for Tyreek Hill. I like this idea a lot. And again, that's not to compare the players, but looking for, when you have a quarterback on a rookie contract, receivers who might not be sticking with their teams because they could be too expensive or whatever other nonsense has happened. If you're Jerry Jeudy, I don't side with him over Steve Smith, but I think that he's got more potential than what's been able to show there in Denver. It's just such a horrendous situation for quarterbacks and offenses in Denver. That this is exactly what they need. They need a young-ish wide receiver who can grow with their quarterback. And I think with Jeudy, he's not exactly super hot right now. I mean, this isn't like you're trading multiple firsts or something for him. Probably a 3rd round pick gets that done if they're not going to stick with him. The only concern what I would have is just, Like, is he just not that good? Or, I mean, I've seen him be good at times, but then I've also seen him do disappearing acts. But I totally agree with this trade. I think it's exactly what Carolina needs, though.
I'm gonna need you to carry the show for a second because my headphone died and I
Oh
can't. I think
no.
I need to leave the studio and come back in so I can get this thing to work. We dealt with some issues last week, so hopefully this is a quick fix. So just maybe do another trade speculation. I'll try and come back and get this fixed real quick.
Okay, perfect. Well, not the first time that we will ever have any technical issues while doing this. Hi, folks. I'm here by myself now. So, my other trade was going to be outside of, I mean, if you're still here after the genius Case Keenum to the Browns trade, then you can't wait for what's next. But I also wanted to find a home for Brian Burns. And I feel like with Carolina giving away their first round draft pick to the Chicago Bears, which may end up being Drake May or Caleb Williams, depending on maybe which one you like the most, they need another top draft pick. So Carolina trading away Brian Burns to the Baltimore Ravens. After this week, I think we can say definitively that the Baltimore Ravens have an argument to be one of the top 3 teams in the NFL after they just smashed the hell out of the Detroit Lions. They're often buyers. It's worked out for them before. And if they can buy Brian Burns and add to a pass rush that looks great, I mean, we're seeing Matabuke emerge in the middle. We're seeing Owe start to do a little bit more. Patrick Queen, we talked about last week, has been good. The Ravens, they're in win now mode, man. And anybody who announced that they were not trading for Lamar Jackson should be ashamed of themselves. That team is really good. They're really well coached. Give them one more pass rusher, and they are violent and scary.
All right, I heard what you said that time, and I like the take. Yeah, I mean, you said it perfectly. It'd be nasty. They haven't quite gotten really what they needed to from I don't know if you said this because I joined a little late, but they haven't quite gotten what they thought they might get from Ojabo, the year 2 guy out of Michigan. Yeah, I mean, just a little bit of juice there, and just some added longevity too, because Clowney's not like the long term answer off the edge there. So that'd be freaking nasty. And it's not like they need their first round pick. Like they're pretty deep, pretty loaded. I love it. All right, I got one more here. And I'm in this one's more in the fun bucket, but I don't know, somewhat realistic. I'm gonna go Justin Fields to the Atlanta Falcons. Ritter, another kind of stinker of a week, just coughing the ball into the end zone. He's an Atlanta guy, if I'm not mistaken. He was originally recruited out of that area, and they've shown they can use some mobility in that offense. We've talked about Justin Fields' issues. I don't know that he's going to, turn around and go be a superstar quarterback or anything. But for an Atlanta team that currently leads the NFC South, I do think he could be better than Desmond Ritter in that offense and better pretty quickly. Like, I think Fields is at least capable enough to get the ball to Kyle Pitts, get the ball to Drake London. And I'm still just not buying the Desmond Ritter train here.
Say what you want about PFF grades for quarterbacks, which, can be spotty. Somehow Kirk Cousins graded worse this week than he did last week against the Bears, and I thought it was about his best game. A turnover-worthy play hurt him. I understand how the system works, but regardless, Desmond Ritter's 30th of 31 quarterbacks who qualify. He's been as horrendous as anybody in the league. He's had 1 or 2 games where he's looked like even a halfway competent quarterback, and yet they're winning games. Trade him Case Keenum. Trade everyone Case Keenum. Maybe they should trade for Lamar Jackson. Oh, wait, they announced they weren't going to try to do that. So what a shame. Can you imagine that team with Lamar Jackson? But yeah, that's a really interesting one with Justin Fields, because I think what happened against Minnesota was it was over. It was just over. Like, they had that hot game against Washington, and everyone was like, oh, yeah. But that was kind of DJ Moore running after the catch for 200 yards out of his 230, something like that. He could not read the Brian Flores defenses. He threw to just terrible interception. He was just struggling all over the place. And when you're in year 3, you can't see anything out there. And Brock Purdy had some really super inaccurate throws that were picks. he was finding receivers open. Like if Justin Herbert was finding receivers open, Patrick Mahomes, if you're a good quarterback against this Vikings blitzes and defenses, you'll probably be able to find the receivers, and Fields just took the snap and looked down at his shoes and then scrambled. It's pretty much over there. But Arthur Smith, get him on the bootlegs, get him running, get him delivering the ball to some of these playmakers. I think it's not crazy. If I were them, I'd be trading for Davis Mills or somebody. I'd be trading for all the Houston backups. I'd be looking around and going, will you trade me Andy Dalton? This team wins the division easily with Andy Dalton. Any like reasonable veteran quarterback is what I'd be looking at. Taylor Heineke, I don't think qualifies for that. Although, do you have an opinion on Bijan Robinson like not playing because he was sick or something?
I just wish. I mean, to me, like, I guess if it was announced in the morning, then I don't know how much you can do about it, but I don't have a strong opinion. No, I don't. Like, I think there's a little bit of Arthur Smith trying to use it as a decoy where he's like, yeah, he's active and he's going to be out there and we're going to run him and you got to account for it. But I don't know. I really don't have a strong opinion. Arthur Smith bugs me, but that's such a weird situation. That I guess I don't know. I don't have a strong stance on it. Do you?
I guess I would say that Arthur Smith on numerous occasions has seemed like a little bit in over his head with the head coaching position versus offensive coordinator. The other thing I would say is, look, there's a reason why we tell you not to draft running backs in the first round. And we're seeing it play out. Bijan Robinson looks like he's super talented, but he doesn't change the math that much. And Jahmyr Gibbs barely plays. So like this is what happens a lot of times is people act like drafting them has a different bust quotient than everybody else, but it doesn't. And I'm not calling Bijan a bust, but it just sort of was like glaring, like, oh, a running back's not playing and they're playing other people. And we don't really know exactly why, but man, you know who they could have used is Jordan Addison or, right. Like, I don't know. It's just, anyway, so that came to mind, but that has nothing to do with anything. I think that Arthur Smith was kind of, if he's trying to do that to get an edge, he's probably breaking some rules and also being super corny. So not really a fan of what he's doing there.
I guess that's what I was trying to say. I was bumbling through my words. It was a little suspicious the way it was handled. But did we do all three trades for each?
Did you do a third one?
Yeah, it was Justin Fields to Atlanta.
Oh, that's right. Oh,
we went off the rails there for
sure.
a second.
Yeah. I would love to see that though, because Atlanta taking a swing at a quarterback who's super dynamic, that would be at least a fascinating trade for them because Ritter's just not it.
And I totally agree with you too, where the Minnesota game did kind of feel like that was it for Fields. And I think if Chicago could get even a second round pick back from Atlanta for Fields at this point, they'd be like, you know what? Like, we're going to have our own pick. We're going to have the Panthers pick. Even if we, for some reason, don't love these quarterbacks, do we really want to do this again with Fields next year? I think we might be ready to part ways there. It just isn't, it just hasn't been a fit. But
just real quick, did Tyson Bagent potentially save the jobs of like Matt Eberflus and Luke Getsy? Because if Tyson Bagent, even for the rest of the season, wins like 40% of the games and looks competent the rest of the way, they're going to be like, we didn't draft Justin Fields. We were waiting for Caleb Williams, and now we're going to get him. So maybe you should let us stay.
Yeah, I mean, that 100, like trading away Fields would be that acknowledgement. I will say the defense played better the last 2 weeks. I made this point on the power rankings this week where Robert Saleh's defense in the first year, really bad, really, really bad. And then by like around this time last year, like week 5, week 6, they started to click in. So for all the crap we talk about the Bears, if the defense, even though they still don't have a lick of a pass rush, if they're starting to, play a little bit better team defense and show some sparks of life, which is what Eberflus is there to do, you at least have something he can hang his hat on and say, you got to give me one more year to get go get a pass rusher and put a great defense around here. I personally would not bet on Eberflus getting fired. I would bet that he is back personally. It is close, but I would bet that he's back. What do you think about that?
I think that he should be if they play like they did the last 2 weeks. Like if they look like a grindy team who's like running little bootlegs with Bajent, and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But if their defense continues to get better, and if Jalen Johnson decides he wants to stay, which was out there this week, that might speak a little better of them. But I know this, they changed their president. Kevin Warren is taking over there, and I know he's there to build the stadium. But also, you take over as the guy in an organization. What do you usually do? You usually bring in your own people. So how much longer do they get? I mean, is he going to say like, okay, well, you were scrappy, so you get to stay around, or I've already got people that I've earmarked for these jobs, and sorry, Ryan Poles, you get to play the role of Sashi Brown. You did all the tanking and got none of the credit. I'm very suspect on whether he will make that change or not. I think that's an interesting dynamic to watch.
Yeah, for sure. All right, let's move on to our next topic here. This is about the time of the year where we want to start canceling some teams that are unwatchable, teams that we think have no chance. But I want to challenge us because I want to keep doing this throughout the year. I want to axe teams. I want to cancel teams, basically saying they have no shot at the playoffs. I want to challenge us to be accurate on this, and we can look back in a way that nobody we axed ended up making the playoffs. So I want to be careful. I want to consider all options. And basically, I think we both need to be in agreement to axe a team. So I think we should axe at least 3 this week. And then we'll kind of address this as we go, who we need to axe. But
let me throw this out there to you. There's just an idea. What if we play axe team chicken, where we go back and forth canceling teams until we're not comfortable canceling a team anymore, and then the last person to not be comfortable canceling a team is the loser. What do you think of that? Because I think there's some that are so obvious where we could just cancel them like immediately, go back and forth. But then it's like, well, I think I don't know. And are we talking about playoffs here? Is that kind of like what we're talking about?
Yep.
Okay.
I like it. Let's do that.
Okay.
So
All right. Let's give it a shot. So I'll just start out by immediately canceling the Arizona Cardinals. Tank is going great. Wonderful work there. I know you kind of like them a little bit if Kyler Murray comes back. They're too far gone. It's too rough. Even if he does come back, he's playing like 5 games. So I will start by canceling Arizona. And we don't need to like have long explanations for the worst teams, but I know you liked them a little bit earlier, so I'm canceling them first.
Yeah. No, I think if like Kyler could be fun. It would be fun to watch, but they're, like you said, they're too far out. Playoffs are not in the realm of like, this could be fun. All right. I will axe the Denver Broncos. I think AFC is too tough. Defense has gotten a little bit better, but they're just nothing more than mediocre on both sides of the ball.
Well, I'll axe the worst team in football, the Carolina Panthers. Obviously, they have 0 wins. That was easy.
All right. So I had notes on this, though. I have notes on this.
Oh, what you think the Panthers are turning it around?
Panthers truther at this point, but
new play caller.
That's a part of the notes. So they're 0-6, but they're coming off the bye. New play caller. Their upcoming schedule: Houston, Indianapolis, Chicago, Dallas, Tennessee, Tampa Bay. The NFC South sucks. Could they win 4? Could they go 4-6 in that stretch? They get to 4-8. I mean, maybe you probably need to pull an upset there and go 5-1 on that stretch. But I think they've been playing better offensively lately. If they took the bye to clean up some stuff defensively, where I do think they have some players, I'm not comfortable axing them yet. But hey, you can axe them, and I think we need to come up with some kind of like punishment or something for if an axed team that we picked, makes the playoffs. We'll have to ponder that. But okay, so you're gonna axe Carolina. I'll axe Chicago. We haven't axed Chicago yet. I mean, we just talked about them. They're terrible.
Nobody likes Tyrod Taylor more than me. I was in Buffalo when Tyrod was there. Super likable guy. I enjoy watching him throw a deep ball. It's beautiful. I'm axing the Giants, though. He's not saving that season. That team is terrible.
I wanted to look up their upcoming schedule just to play devil's advocate here. But I think that division has some tough So they got Jets, Raiders, Cowboys, Commanders, Patriots, Packers, Saints.
There's some
I
wins
don't,
in there if Tyrod plays, but even
yeah.
then, like they beat the Commanders by a touchdown, and it required a dropped pass at the end of the game, and they celebrated it like it was a title. I mean, it was just like, yeah, we did it. Like, okay, well, good for you.
I think there's probably
But
some.
I'm comfortable with that.
I think that's fair. I think they're probably so salty with they got screwed about as much as anybody got screwed in a game last year. They were or no, it was the other way around, right? The Commanders got screwed by the pass interference in the end zone last year. So never mind. I was thinking they were celebrating getting over that hump, but okay, I'm fair. I'm fine with you axing the Giants. Patriots, I think, in terms of can they make the playoffs, that feels rich. I do want to save some things I have to say about the Patriots for our next segment, but when it comes to playoffs, I think again, let me check their schedule.
It's I mean, look at the AFC. It's pretty tough. I
Yeah.
mean, you have all these AFC North teams. The Bills are making the playoffs. The Texans are probably better than them. I don't know. It's a stretch. It's a stretch. They could finish better than the Jets, though. Like the Jets have really grinded out some hideous wins
Yeah.
against good teams, and I don't think that's going to really continue. So you're canceling the Patriots.
Yeah, they still have the Dolphins, Chargers, Steelers, Chiefs, Bills, and Jets on the schedule. So I don't see them getting enough wins out of that one. So yeah, we'll axe the Patriots from the playoffs.
I will axe the Titans since they're playing two quarterbacks, and I don't think I need to say anything more about that. Goodbye,
Yeah.
Titans.
I kind of forgot them. I should have taken them over the Patriots, but I think we're both safe.
Now
If
it's
this is
getting
a game
trickier.
of chicken, you are backing me into a corner to potentially axe the Green Bay Packers right now, and I don't like what you're doing. I'll do it. I will do it because
It's going for it.
I will happily take any punishment that I have to do within reason if the Packers somehow get hot and make the playoffs. But yeah, I don't think they're well coached right now. You talked about LaFleur earlier. He just week after week continues to be a stock down type of coach. Like I don't think it's a well-run operation. I think he draws up some really creative plays. I think he'd be a great offensive coordinator somewhere. But in terms of running the organization, I don't like it. Horrible defensive coordinator. Special teams show up as an issue every other week. They had a big missed kick that cost them the game this week. Jordan Love. It's not been a good couple of weeks for my guy Jordan, who had a good, first 4 weeks to the season. So their schedule's pretty light, but I would have said that when they had the Raiders and the Broncos on the schedule the last 2 weeks as well. They're only 2 wins, by the way, against the Bears and a last-ditch comeback against the Saints where they were getting their teeth kicked in for 3 quarters. So I will axe the Packers.
You could argue that they should have 2 more wins if Jordan Love didn't botch the end of games, maybe, but botching the end of games for somebody like him is kind of an important part of it. LaFleur, I think that LaFleur's downfall is going to be, of course, not having the all-time great quarterback. Imagine, but sticking with this same defensive system that does not get the most out of players. And Brian Flores has just opened my eyes to how valuable that thing really is, that defensive coordinator spot. I mean, it's just that they went with a more talented defense under Ed Donatel and got way better with a less talented defense because of the defensive coordinator. That to me is his worst decision, but I'm with you in canceling the Packers. I'm like 80% there. I'm more closer to 100% on my favorite quarterback, Sam Howell, and the Washington Commanders. Oh, Sam Howell just got sacked 3 times since I started this sentence. That's a shame. Sorry, Sam Howell looks to me like he could be a backup, probably not a starter. That's okay if you draft that in the 5th round, but if you're going to get sacked over and over and over and over, you're not going to win that many games. Commanders will not make the playoffs, and I am going to cancel them confidently.
Okay. I think you're safe. Yeah, I got to say it. Like, I was at the Vikings game last night and watching Brian Flores' defense in person, and it is literally the same defense that the Vikings ran last year. The Fangio, Ed Donatel, soft, squishy zone thing. The Packers have been a little bit more aggressive this year, but it's still been a lot of the same. And I'm sitting there watching this, and I'm just looking around for someone to rant to, surrounded by Vikings fans. Like, do you guys realize how lucky you are to have a coordinator that coaches defense? Like, they actually want to play defense. And yeah, totally agree there. I'm not gonna chicken out yet. I will cancel the Chargers are tempting, man. Chargers are tempting. I think I'm gonna cancel the Colts. Love the Colts. I think they could go 8-9, even 9-8. Like how Gardner Minshew bounced back. I think Shane Steichen's the right man for the job, but do I see them going on a playoff run with some of their injuries and Grover Stewart just getting suspended? They just lost a kind of a heartbreaker to the Browns that you might look back on and say that's a game back of a wild card spot. So I'll knock out the Colts.
Okay, so I'm thinking already of potential punishments if one of our teams makes it, which is like I'll wear a cheese head for the show, you
Yeah.
wear Viking horns or something like that. We
Yeah.
need to do something like that. All right, so you're canceling the Colts. I will cancel Josh McDaniels just in
Yeah.
general. Like the Raiders, Jimmy G always makes things interesting when he's healthy, but he's never healthy anymore. Raiders, you are canceled. And now we're getting into some interesting territory.
Yeah.
Who's going to chicken out first here? We could play this game every week. This is fun.
This is fun. And I'm like overlooking teams too. Like the second I said Colts, I realized the Raiders were sitting there. Man. Okay. Oh, I can't do that. The NFC South is tempting because all those teams are bad. But if I'm really trying to be right, someone's going to walk out of that division. So I think I'm not going to touch the NFC South. I think I'm not going to axe the Vikings. I'm not going to do it. I think they could potentially wage a comeback in that division. I don't think there's an NFC team left that I'm willing to axe. So AFC.
I only see maybe one. I'm hoping you're not picking them.
I mean, Texans would be Texans or Chargers or Jets, I guess. It just seems a little premature. I wish you were in this corner. I know who I'd pick.
I know who I'd pick.
I'm gonna fold.
You're chickening out? Wow. Yep. Okay. I was ready to keep pushing you and to cancel the Jets. I was going to cancel the Jets. They're not trading for Kirk. That's not happening now, and it wasn't happening ever. Zach Wilson is still very bad. Like they've grinded out some wins, but he's been by all metrics one of the worst quarterbacks in the NFL. They don't really have another option at quarterback. And when you again look at the conference, you start counting playoff teams. All right, Miami, Buffalo, Baltimore. At least, 3 teams from the AFC North, probably. Kansas City's absolutely in. No one's catching the Jaguars for that division. And then I think the Texans are better than the Jets because their quarterback is pretty awesome. So I would confidently take the Jets, but you chickened out first.
I chickened out. They just beat the Eagles. They got an easy schedule coming up. I'm going to chicken out. And maybe that's because if Aaron Rodgers does come back late this season on some miraculous run, I don't want to be cheering for them to fail because I think they'll be a ton of fun. So I will wear the chicken head. I'm the coward, and we'll see if the Jets can make you come on and wear a cheese head on the show.
Okay. I like this. And you know what we have to do? I'm going to keep the list right here on my phone is decide, do you want, like each week, do you want to cancel somebody or do you want to pass on canceling somebody? So I'm keeping track of all the picks that we made. I will still take the Jets to cancel. I will still take my selection and cancel the Jets.
I like it. That's fun. All right. Our next topic here is just a little discussion about teams that confuse us. Like just trying to kind of provide some answers for some of these teams that every week we're like, what the hell are you going to get from this team? And the first team I want to talk about a little bit is the Cleveland Browns and this Deshaun Watson situation. Like he's medically cleared last week and then he doesn't play. And then this week he's medically cleared and he plays, and then he plays bad, ends up in concussion protocol, and they, pull him out of the game as if like we're just going to straight up bench you. So I'm really a fan of the Browns as a team. I think this defense is incredible, but on a week-to-week basis, I have no answers for how good they're going to be because their quarterback situation is just such an absolute disaster. And I don't even know if there's a take there, but they frustrate me and confuse me.
Their defense is so much like all the defenses that we've tried to anoint in recent years, where we've said, oh, this defense is unstoppable. No one could possibly, and then someone does because it's 2023 and not 2001. And that's how I feel about the Browns, where they slow down the 49ers attack, and the Vikings did pretty well yesterday as well. But they slow them down, and then everyone goes like, oh, historically great defense. Look at them. Like, okay, all right, pump some brakes. We just don't do that as much anymore, where a team can dominate purely on defense. And that's what they have to do. And luck, apparently, and referees. That was one of the strangest ends to a game. And just as a total side rant, if the referee on TV is going to come on and go, I don't know what is a ball that's uncatchable. Like, I just want to shut the television off. Like, so I don't want to listen to you anymore. Like, what? Do we not know this? This happens all the time where somebody throws the ball away. Is there no standard? Is there no like, if it's out of his reach, if he has a 40-inch vertical, if Kelvin Johnson couldn't catch it, that should be the standard. Like get out like one of those cardboard cutouts of Kelvin Johnson jumping, set it down. Was it over him? It was uncatchable. There we go. It's the Kelvin Johnson test, the new technology in the NFL. They've got next gen, so we could draw every inch of every play with little dots, but can't figure out what's uncatchable. Great work, NFL. Congratulations on screwing the Indianapolis Colts out of that win. But that wasn't the point at all. I agree with you. It's a difficult team to figure because you keep thinking like, oh, Watson will get it together someday. I remember him with the Texans. This just ain't the same guy. And whether that's injuries or whether that's being away from the game or whether he's changed since then, or I have no idea. But this is one of the greatest fall offs for a player I have ever seen, ever. Even Mike Vick came back from football and then looked like good at first and then great. Maybe it just shows you how hard it is to go away. Even if you try to come back, that it's like really challenging. But it's just a miserable situation there. And when you have to play a backup quarterback, you're never going to really know what you're getting. Now, I want to know if it's a hot take to toss the Miami Dolphins into this discussion. Because I think, we discussed the Bills a little bit earlier. They were going to be my pick for this because they beat the Dolphins, but then they come out and score like 4 points against the Giants or something. Like, what? And they couldn't move the ball against the Patriots or stop Mac Jones's dink and dunk as if there was anything else he was going to do. Odd stuff refereeing in that game too. But Miami, with the way that they played against Buffalo and the way they played against Philadelphia, these are the contending teams that they're supposed to be rolling with, and they haven't really stood the test against either of those teams. Do we really think all those stats that they have that they racked up against the Broncos really told the true story, or are they more of a just like goodish team or real goodish team, not the like juggernaut Kurt Warner Rams type of team?
Yeah, I mean, I still just don't trust Tua, right? Like, in my heart of hearts, and I get it, Dolphins fans, you're angry at people when they question the guy, and he was a first round pick, and he was tanked for Tua, and he's awesome, and his stats are incredible. But when push comes to shove, you're down there, a chance to tie the game, and he's out there making one of these throws. Like, this is what he does. He makes these anticipation throws, and it's part of what makes him great. But at any given moment, he could think he sees something. And I understand the spacing on the route wasn't ideal and like whatever, you want to explain away the throw. Like, no, it was a ball he should not have thrown off his back foot, lobbing it into danger in the biggest of spots. And it's actually very similar to like the Bills, where like at any given moment, that big turnover could come. And that's just a thing that's not very trustworthy. And similarly with the Bills, like I feel pretty good about who these teams are otherwise. Like, I know they're going to move the ball. I will say that the Dolphins got some pretty rough penalties called against them. I am not a big like penalties guy, but man, like that face mask, on the 4th down where I thought it was like a catchable back shoulder comebacker that the receiver would have had a look, and the second he's turning around, he's getting ripped by his face mask. I'm like, what are we looking at here? Like, literally, how do you not call that flag? I couldn't believe it. There's another one too earlier in the game, but I can't recall off the top of my head what it was. But despite them really getting kind of screwed by the refs, they were right there in it against the best team in football, on Sunday night. So I think it's fair to say they confuse you a little bit, but I do still have them as one of my top teams. I think the Bills game, they ran into an absolute buzzsaw where Josh Allen just played one of his best games. And when you run into Josh Allen, he's playing one of his best games. That's going to happen. And then it happened again against Jalen Hurts. So maybe there's something to it that their defense isn't good enough to force bad games out of these quarterbacks, but it is frustrating that they haven't been able to pick up one of these big game wins for sure.
Are they, my question is, are they a 9 out of 10, 10 out of 10, or more like a 6 or 7? Is the question that I have. I think that's why I'm confused. Not like there is much Jekyll and Hyde as someone like the Browns.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, one more team, and it's kind of for similar reasons as the Seattle Seahawks, but they confuse me because I just want to know if their defense is good. They've had some little stints of good defense. Second half against the Bengals was real good, but like, is this pass rush real? Boye Mafe has a big game against the Cardinals, and they hold him to 10 points against the Cardinals. But until I can feel any bit of confidence in a Seahawks defense that, to me, coming into the year, I just felt like was one of these squishy defenses that doesn't have a pass rush. They got some fun players in the secondary, but if you don't have a fear factor up front, no one's going to be afraid of you, and you're going to be inconsistent. So they confuse me in that way. I think offensively they frustrate me a little bit because Geno has kind of shown us, I think, who he is at this point, where he's a good quarterback for sure. He has a short memory. He keeps coming and makes big throws every week. I love his pocket presence, his mobility, his arm talent. But he also has shown us, there's going to be a high likelihood of 1 or 2 mistake-worthy throws in there. So, I think they frustrate me a little bit offensively, but I think I know who they are. But yeah, they confuse me defensively because they've just been so up and down there.
I think the Seattle Seahawks are a perpetual confusion franchise where
Yeah.
you always think that they're great and then they find some crazy way to lose. There's a few teams I thought about here for the last one for me. The Rams would be one of them, where every time I think that they're good, then they kind of lose to somebody. But I'm going to go to the team they lost against. Another referee-influenced game, by the way. Kenny Pickett clearly short of the first down. I don't know what's going on there. But Pittsburgh confuses me. And the reason they confuse me is how the hell they're 4-2. When their quarterback, I had to look this up. I was like, wait, what are his stats? This dude is completing 60% of his passes in the year 2023, where that would be very decent in 1995, and averaging under 7 yards an attempt, 5 touchdowns, 4 picks, 81 quarterback rating. Oh, so they must have the best running game in football, right? They must be dominating. No, Najee Harris. Hey, by the way, drafting running backs at the top. 3.9 yards per carry. Okay, well, George Pickens at least, right? Oh, yeah, okay. George Pickens has been okay. Their defense has been pretty good, but how the heck are they 4-2? How are they 4-2? They might have the worst offensive coordinator in football. It is astounding that they find ways to grind out these wins, and Mike Tomlin kind of doing it again on his way to a better than 500 record. If they have a quarterback, if they have an offensive coordinator, what does this franchise look like? But somehow they're right there, as they always are.
Super well said. That's like the definition of confusing. You can't explain it. We haven't been able to explain it for a long time. It's just what Mike Tomlin does. I think it's no doubt that they have the worst offensive coordinator in the league. And I will say getting Deontay Johnson back is a big deal for them because Matt Canada, for all of his flaws, and there's plenty, he wants this quick hitting kind of West Coast style, get the ball out, passing game as a function of the run game type of deal. And getting a guy like Deontay Johnson who can, snap off the line and get open quickly. I think that's a key piece to their offense that they just, Pickens is good, but that's not who he is. So I do think getting him back is huge. And it's not a coincidence that Pickett had his best game last week against the Rams. But yeah, very, very much a confusing team. All right. We technically still have 2 segments left. The middle, this fourth one here, I think is a little bit quicker because I don't know if there's a ton of answers for the question, but this was something I thought of, and it's, a lot of 1-win or 2-win teams that we thought were like bottom tier teams won this week. You got the Broncos, the Bears, Giants, a couple of them. And are there any of these teams that you think might go on a little bit of a run and kind of climb? I know we kind of already eliminated some of these teams from the playoffs, so we've talked about this a little bit. Maybe poor planning on my end to be redundant with our topics, but which of these teams, if any, would you pick to heat up and at least be a relevant team come season's end?
I think I need to get your opinion on this because the Vikings are the pick.
Mm-hmm.
If you look at their upcoming schedule, it's hilarious. They just play a bunch of bad teams. The NFC South, the AFC West. It's right there for them. They've got the Packers, they've got the Bears. It's all right there for them to go on a winning streak and for Kirk Cousins to go crazy. Do you think after seeing them in person last night, as you did, that is realistic that they could go from say 3-4 to 7-5, 8-6 in a jiffy?
I think with that schedule, I mean, let me just look at it real quick to give like an actual structured answer here, but they've got Packers, Falcons, Saints, Broncos, Bears, Raiders. Like, can they go 5-1 there? I see worst case like 4-2 with how they're playing. I mean, I love the way the defense is playing. You get Jefferson back in 2 more weeks, right? Theoretically, is that
potentially?
It's where it's nice to have a Vikings insider here for those types of questions. But yeah, you go 4-2, and you get to 7-5. You're not only definitely like one of the front runners for one of those wild cards in the NFC, but we'll see what Detroit does here coming off of their embarrassing performance against the Ravens. We've somehow managed to not talk about Detroit this whole show, but I think that's the one team, honestly, that could be like an actual playoff team out of these surprising upset teams this week. The one team I want to talk about a little bit is the New England Patriots. Again, we axed them. I think the AFC is probably out of the picture here, but it was a really good week for the Patriots. And I think I saw this on the ticker on Sunday Ticket. Did they extend Bill Belichick this week?
Supposedly they quietly did it, I think in the off season, gave him another extension. And then they were connecting on one of the pregame shows that to why they played better. And I was like, I don't know if that's it. I think
don't know about
Buffalo just kind of blew it.
Yeah. But given that news that it sounds like, Belichick might be coming back next year, I do think the biggest thing we saw here was the offensive line getting back healthy. We've been trashing that offensive line, but the reality is they've been trotting out tons and tons of backups on that group. This week, they get Michael Onwenu back in the lineup. He plays right tackle, and he is a brick wall. He's a good right tackle. They get Trent Brown back, who might have been back last week, but I know he's missed some time. And then they get their first-round pick last year, Cole Strange, back. And all of a sudden, they got a run game, and Mac Jones has a little bit of time to throw. I also like that they've kind of just figured out who they can actually throw the football to here in this offense. They've identified that Kendrick Bourne, while not a superstar, is a functional player that they can kind of design their passing game through as their kind of first read. And then they've discovered okay, we've got these complementary pieces. We can bring in Mike Gesicki in the red zone. We can flip the ball to Demario Douglas on these, outlet routes. And Zeke is actually looking all right this year. So again, not trying to sell them as a playoff team, but this was a team we were both pretty high on coming into the year. They had this catastrophic start. I think they can get back to being a team we look back on, and maybe they finish the year as the 16th best team, and they pull off some really frustrating upsets as the year goes on.
I thought that their defense would look much more like it did against Buffalo to start the season, and maybe there's some sort of adjustment period going on there. I'm not sure what it would be. Bill Belichick has been the coach forever, but maybe just for the players, the injuries, maybe getting healthy, that matters so much. You bring up the schedule all the time, and I think that's one of the biggest factors when we go, well, that team just got hot, and let's nobody look at who they played. We'll just talk about what they did. I mean, I think that Miami all of their wins like were combined for something like a 3-24 record or something, something crazy
Yeah.
funny like that. All their wins were against horrendous teams. So it does matter who they've got coming up and whether they've got it figured out. They, to me, were not one of the like Caleb Williams teams coming in. And I think Mac Jones looked a lot more like I expect him to look this last week. And sometimes with him, you're like, buck up, soldier. Like, come on, buddy. Like sometimes he just looks so sort of down,
Mhm.
and maybe he needed a win to get rolling, like a good win to get some confidence, because he will look so broken sometimes that you want to almost go just pat him on the back. It's all right, Mackerel.
Yeah.
What's his name? McCorkle. Like, come on, buddy.
McCorkle. Yep. Yeah.
Come on, McCorkle. You can do it.
These last couple of years. All right. You want to kind of speed round our week 8 draft here that we've been doing. Again,
we can do that
not
real
the
quick.
best slate, not the best slate coming up this weekend. It's tough when there's so many bad teams, but maybe some of these teams that we've talked about can become more competitive and give us some better slates in the future. I think I'll take the first pick this week, if that's okay. I think I gave you the first pick last week.
Yep, fire away.
All right, I'm gonna go with Niners Bengals. Kind of the one heavy hitter this week as I'm scrolling through this. There's some other ones, but this is gonna be really fascinating. I think the Bengals coming off the bye. I think they needed the bye as bad as any like championship caliber team that I can remember, with Burrow's injury coming into the year. Kind of a lucky break that they got the early bye to kind of get an extra week to get that ankle healthy. And T. Higgins, by the way, playing through a broken rib, gets an extra week to kind of, not endure that as much. And just a big week for the Niners too. I mean, they're dealing with no Debo. I think that's been something they've missed offensively, is kind of the easy offense that he creates. I mean, McCaffrey obviously creates easy offense as well, but Debo does it in other ways that I think are really beneficial for Brock Purdy with his run after catch and kind of dominance on slants and inbreakers and stuff. So, what kind of answers do the Niners have to kind of get this offense looking like they did the first few weeks where they were unstoppable, but now a couple weeks in a row, they've been very stoppable. So that's a heavy hitting matchup and a Super Bowl rematch of sorts, right? Wasn't that a big Super Bowl back in the day?
What, wasn't that a big Super Bowl back in the day? Of course it was. Actually twice. That was Bill Walsh's first, and then they beat him in the late 80s as well. There was a little throw that Joe Montana made that some people might remember to John Taylor in the end zone. Yep, the drive. So yeah, couple of good history there. And Bill Walsh was a coach in Cincinnati. He was not given the head coaching job in Cincinnati, went to Stanford, got the job at San Francisco, enacted his revenge. So yes, that history doesn't matter at all, but that is the history. If you ask me about it, you're going to get the answer. I will go with, in one of the all-time most horrific national television slates in the history of the National Football League, I will still pick one from this list, Bills and Tampa Bay Bucks, because I want to see if the Bills can bounce back. The Bucks have a good defense, and can they bounce back against the Bucks team that they should beat? But I don't know if I trust them after what we saw from McCorkle last week. Like, can he be Baker Mayfield Corkle against them? Not sure. But really, that's how bad this whole schedule this week is.
I was laughing because I thought you were going to go with the Bajent Chargers game.
Oh man,
yeah, no, the night games. Oh my God, that's brutal. You got Bucks Bills, which is watchable. Bears Chargers with Bajent, and then Raiders Lions. Hopefully Jimmy Garoppolo plays on Monday night, and at least gives us a football game. But yeah, that's pretty tough. You do get the snake. You get to pick the next game.
All right. How about well, Los Angeles at Dallas is pretty good.
Yeah.
So I guess I'll go with that one. It's maybe the only other one that's watchable, unless you like calamity, or unless you like to see if Patrick Mahomes can once again beat the Denver Broncos as he has every time. But Los Angeles is a Jekyll and Hyde team. Some weeks they're really good and some weeks they struggle. And I mean, Dallas needs to kind of start proving it at some point that they are in that same category as some of the other teams. But I think what we're seeing is that all the great teams are flawed in the NFC.
Yeah.
The Eagles, the 49ers, the Cowboys, they're all flawed, even though they are better than everybody else. So get a good win there, Dallas, if you're legit.
I like it. Browns Seahawks is we'll get to get some answers, I think, about how well can the Seahawks defense, like, can they dominate the Browns at home? Like, I need to see if it's not a true test for them, but I need to see them win that game, 20-3. Show me that you can dominate. And just the Browns defense to me is just so watchable every week. I think Myles Garrett is entering that JJ Watt, Aaron Donald level of, like, just enjoy these guys while they're in their prime. Like, JJ Watt fell off. Aaron Donald's 32 years old. Like, just when you get a chance to watch these guys, especially against some tackles for Seattle that are, I think that would be the next game that my eyes would be directed towards there. And then for my final game, screw it. Give me the Tyson Bagent performance at the Chargers. That's how bad this slate is this weekend. But I mean, you got a new interesting quarterback here for Chicago. The Justin Fields drama against a horrible Chargers defense. Their effort against the Chiefs was so pathetic. I mean, talk about the soft, squishy Fangio style approach. Brandon Staley, I want to see them lose and fire Brandon Staley. If they lose against Tyson Bagent and the Bears, who had a great run game last week, by the way, they have the script in this game to come out and mash the Chargers run defense that is every week horrible. They have a chance. They're 9-point underdogs, but we've seen bigger upsets this year. I want to see it. I want to see the Bears do it. I want to see their the Bears pick climb higher in the draft so that their future becomes even more complicated. And I want to see the Chargers finally freed of Brandon Staley.
I want to see Brandon Staley fired as well. I think one of the probably ends up being like one of the worst coaching hires because you ruined Justin Herbert's rookie contract.
Yeah.
And that's a crime because now it doesn't get any easier for whoever takes over next. Also funny to think about how if a ball doesn't bounce off of TJ Hawkinson's hands up and get intercepted and maybe bounces just regular incomplete, then you're going to he'd probably get fired there at 0-3. Yeah. And, he's kept his job for a couple more weeks just to have a couple more funny meltdowns. So good luck to them. I might have gone with Jacksonville and Pittsburgh here if I had another draft pick, but it'll probably
do. You have one more.
Oh, okay. I do have one more, but then I'll go with that one. The Jacksonville offense has been, maybe not quite as explosive as we thought. Their defense has been quite good. We'll see if Kenny Pickett can clear 100 yards passing, and we'll go from there. But, I mean, anybody, like a good football team, a really good quarterback going to play the Pittsburgh defense in Pittsburgh, very tough place to play. Probably part of that advantage that leads to them being 500 or better every year. I think it's a good test for Jacksonville and their offense.
Yeah, I definitely overlooked that one. That's the right pick. We could have talked about the Jags for teams that confuse me, by the way, because their offense is good, but I don't feel like they're good when I watch them play. And it's kind of the definition of confusing. Like, I don't have any analysis about it. I trust that they're going to, by the end of the day, probably put up 24 or 30 points, but how they're going to do it or how many frustrating moments you're going to get along the way, it definitely shows up. But yeah, that should be a battle of one of the best offenses and one of the best defenses. So, all right, Matthew, anything you got coming? I mean, we talked about your article over on the Purple Insider. You got anything else cooking?
Well, people should always buy the book that is still out. Football is a numbers game. And if you're a person who gets confused by PFF grades and don't know what they are, where they came from, and why PFF's always tweeting them out, the book is about the analytics revolution and PFF's place in it. So football is a numbers game. Check it out on Amazon. Got to get my plug in there. And yeah, purpleinsider.com is where everything is housed. The YouTube, the podcast, the woof. If you're an Office fan, everything is there. I'll come to your house and yell at you for sports takes, whatever you need. It's all there.
All right, Matthew, it was fun as always. We'll see you and everybody else next Tuesday. Peace out.